The girls like it?
The bed and breakfast? Oh yeah. Yeah, no, my kids have grown up just believing that summers are Alaska and the rest of their lives in Mexico. They actually think of themselves as half Alaskan, half Mexican. And they think summers are green grass and blue skies and and it's been a little unfortunate for my youngest daughter who's just made the best of it because her school gets out late and starts early, that she wasn't able to come up. Well, and because of COVID, like Yuya got involved with the church and she got involved with a couple other jobs because we're just here. We got to figure out how to make here work. And so she took on a bunch more responsibilities that require, she can't leave Mexico for the 3 months we used to leave for. And I'm a free spirit until recently. And so, and the job I've recently got has really worked around my lifestyle so that I can work here, work there remotely. I can still do the computer club from wherever I'm at. They'll work around that even though I'm working remotely. I'm still able to do international computer solutions. So I take jobs in here. I'm still working on computers and helping people here regularly. And I'm still able to go do the bed and breakfast. So I'm fortunate. My boss is one of my good friends. She's just
That's
like,
why you have parties also.
that's it. That's it. You can do these days. I'm like, so when should I expect you? 1 or 2? And she shakes her head. I'm a 50-year-old lady. But I think she's telling it to herself because she still will come home 1, 2 in the morning when she's done. Well, and there's a little bit of overshare on Scott's part here in the San Carlos Computer Club. Good morning. We're starting, and we're actually already online. We've got Chester joining us in our virtual meeting, and I've got you 4 nice folks here joined us right after Easter Semana Santa break here in San Carlos. We've all survived. Everyone else that's not here has written off San Carlos and has fled north, I'm sure. That's the truth, right? Is they would be here, but they were hiding from the crowds. As usual, I have brought some topics I thought you guys would find interesting, but I am also interested in guys have dealt with over the last indoors, hiding from the crowds. Did you run into any computer issues that I could help you? Irving's over here with his hand up already. What do you got, Irving?
Not that old. The all-in-one computer system. Yeah. But I have an extra monitor, so I plugged in the computer when I got online. And I found that I could not locate my Wi-Fi. I did a lot of searching, this and that, whatever, and trying to get help myself. And it doesn't seem possible to me that the computer is old enough not to have Wi-Fi.
Well, when you say you can't find your Wi-Fi, you're talking about are you seeing other people's Wi-Fi from the computer?
No.
It sees no Wi-Fi.
That my IP4 is not connected. But when I look at it, I have addresses. So I'm working on a Ethernet connection, high speed.
Okay, well let's back up a bit because you're talking about Wi-Fi. That would be wireless. It wouldn't be Ethernet. And when you say when you can't find it, that just brings a lot of images to mind. Like if you go looking for Wi-Fi's in your own, but you're not seeing anybody's, and so it's like the Wi-Fi is off. Computer. I mean, I don't be related to your Wi-Fi. No, there is a thing that is a little confusing that you could have inadvertently be looking at. Let me find it. There's a thing called network. No, I'm pulling it up right now to verify what I'm just saying off the top of my head, and it looks like it's working differently than it used to work. So when you work here on this computer.
And I'm almost 100% certain I didn't have it when that was active. I don't think it's more than 6, 7 years old.
Tell me, do you, when you click on it, there are 3 buttons at, if I don't want to put that on the screen over here for you guys, but there's 3 buttons at the bottom. One's Wi-Fi, one's airplane mode, one's mobile hotspot. Do those buttons appear? That's weird. You know, familiar with looking at the devices in your computer, the device manager? So do you see your Wi-Fi card there? Yeah, if you...
Yes, I see that there is a Wi-Fi card
in your computer. What I would do is on the start button, since we've got a screen right here, this is, you can see my bar at the bottom, and what I'm talking about is if you click on your Wi-Fi connection in the task bar, you see those 3 buttons at the bottom. You should have a Wi-Fi button, an airplane button, and mobile that are available to you. And if Wi-Fi was off, this button would be black, and none of those would appear. And it's a button, so if it was off, you could turn it on just by clicking on it. Now, if these buttons don't exist, my first thought is maybe your Wi-Fi card isn't working correctly. The way I would look at it, I'm not saying it's the best way, but this is the way I would end up doing it, is I go to the start button here, and with the right mouse button, I would click on it, and I would choose Device Manager. And the Device Manager, for people that use Windows 10, this is where all the settings for all the hardware exist in your computer. And it's really going to be changing. Yeah, I mean, somebody like I might actually have to go in and change something, but it would be really unusual in this world. Most of this stuff, practically all of this stuff is set automatically when you install stuff. That software install procedure does it. About the only time I find myself in here is to troubleshoot problems, and one of the problems directly in Windows. And many times how that will present in this list is you'll find, and let me get into networks, that you get into this network adapter. And I'm sorry for Chester on our virtual meeting. He can't see this at the moment because I'm doing this on another computer, but you guys can see it on this screen. And how it would present would pop out in this hierarchy, and it'd have a flag next to it, either a red check or it'd have a golden explanation point. And so I'd go in the computer and see if that's the case. If it is, then I would remove it because it's Windows 10, since the XP, not the original, but the latest versions of Windows XP, up through Vista, up through Windows 7 and Windows 8. This has been a fairly safe activity, is to just remove a device in this list that's in conflict and let the computer reinstall it itself. Something might have gotten corrupted. There's nothing like this in the Mac world. I see Judy just glazing over.
No, I have a question. How does it reinstall itself?
It's part of its self-healing nature.
Okay.
And which did not exist in Windows XP, but now it is constantly, it's constantly self-repairing it.
If I could try that, I'm not sure if I found it. I don't know what I'm looking for in the Wi-Fi.
So you would go under network adapters, And there you'll find a bunch of stuff you're not using. Yeah, in Device Manager, under Network Adapters, there's going to be a bunch of stuff in there that you won't be able to identify, but you find very specifically, at the very least, two devices, well, one device, but two devices would be one labeled Wi-Fi by whatever name brand it is, and the other one would be an Ethernet connect. Typically wouldn't say anything specific. I mean, it could say Ethernet. A really nice device driver would say that, but I wouldn't rely on it saying that. That's right. That's right.
It recognizes my internet is working.
So,
But if I was plugged into an Ethernet and was trying to go on Wi-Fi, it wouldn't let me do that. Is that not right?
actually, that's not true.
No.
Yeah, you can use both connections. In fact, I use both connections regularly for different setups. You can use them simultaneously. Where it becomes a problem, I know what you're referring to, is when you've connected Ethernet and Wi-Fi to the same router. Then it gets confused and doesn't know which route to take.
That it's not coming out of the Starlink is the fact that if I went to any of my other devices,
They work fine.
I show everything.
Yeah. So if you look in this network adapters list under Windows 10, they've stuck a bunch of stuff in there that really you're not concerned with. And if you can read what's up there, I know it's really little, but it says all those adapters are WAN mini port adapters. None of those matter to you. Those are the ones you're ignoring. And then the only thing left on this computer is the Wi-Fi adapter because it doesn't have an Ethernet adapter. So there's one network adapter up here. Yeah, the one that I have highlighted, Intel dual band wireless AEAC 31. And
can you right click it and delete it? Is that what you can do?
Well, then if you look in the bar up there, there's a red X, and that'll let you uninstall the device. Okay. And so if you hit uninstall, that uninstall has a checkbox that says delete this driver. Leave that alone the first time around. Just hit the button. Don't make any changes, just hit the uninstall button. And guaranteed, at the very least, if you have to, you can restart the computer. It should find the Wi-Fi adapter. It should reinstall it. I'm only recommending this if you see a flag. You don't. The assumption is it's your problem.
That makes a little more sense to me then. So you could just go in and uninstall it even though it didn't have a flag.
You could, yeah.
If you don't want to do that.
Well, I don't want Irving to. I might do it, because I'm desperately grasping at straws, trying to find, and that might actually solve the problem. Why I don't want Irving to do it is, and the reason I don't want you to put a check mark in it is because you might find yourself in a situation where you're having to download drivers and reinstall those to get that Wi-Fi to work again. Yeah. And it may be the only solution, but it's not an easy solution. It's not one I can just give off the cuff because there's a dozen other steps involved in it. Mm-hmm. Well, it should, and that's the world that we're living in. But still, there's plenty of devices out there that aren't bothering to report their new drivers to Windows. Very related. Windows update broke something that driver was using. And it might be just removing its instance and letting it reassociate its instance will fix that problem. The problem comes when Microsoft has not been made aware of new drivers and they don't have them cached and ready for you to download them. So yeah, that might be the only solution. The troubleshooting is absolutely right. That's one of the ways to do it. But you yourself have to be ready to go through that process of finding the drivers, going to HP if it's an HP, or the big problem is if it's some unknown computer that you're using. Yeah. Yeah, and you can decide how deeply you want to get involved in replacing the device drivers and all that. You might find that you'd have to remove, depending on the device driver, you might actually have to go into the list of applications and uninstall that, and then use an installer to reinstall that driver. And that's, I'm trying to help you without you having to get that deep involved in it, because it could just be a simple glitch that's easily fixed. If you don't have a flag, then there's some completely different problem going on. Unless I'll tell you when you don't have a flag and it's still the problem, it's when you're somebody like me and you're grasping at straws and you've manually installed drivers trying to make a thing work. That's the only time I've ever seen it look like it should work and it's still not working. and I know you haven't done that. The looking like it should work and not working is a problem that existed all the way up to Windows 8. There were problems that you could go in, you could look at the settings, I've got it all set correctly, but it's still not doing, I got the box checked, but it's not doing what the box says. And you could literally go in and uncheck the box and save it, and then come back and recheck the box and save it, and then it would start working.
But see, I've had that recently. I can't remember what I was doing, but I had to actually uncheck a box, go out of it, and come back in and check it. And
those aren't uncommon problems for software that's out there, but for operating system software, that was a constant problem for Windows, was that you'd be looking at something, it would say that it's doing what you expect it to do, but it's not doing the thing you expected it to do. And literally the fix was to tell it not to do it, save it, and then come back and tell it to do it and save it, and that would fix the problem. Out there, cloud-based software, that's not an uncommon problem. The synchronizing between your experience and what's actually happening over on the other end can get out of sync fairly simply. So you shouldn't be concerned about those problems in that respect, but the device in front of you, that's a big problem. It's literally like you went over to a light switch and you flipped it, and the light's still off, and then you flip it back to on, and now it's on. It doesn't make any logical sense when the device is in your hand, and it was a constant problem in Windows back in the day. I always go to that as a fix, regardless of whether I expect to fix it, because I have this, it's been burned into my brain experiences. Well, Irving, I hope that helps with something. If not, you're getting a little closer to figuring out why it's not working. If you find a flag.
Try that and probably abandon shift because I have now high-speed internet. I'm okay.
Yeah, having the Ethernet connection really allows you the flexibility to live without it and explore it.
The splitter will work on stuff. So by using the splitter, I'll be able to maintain my whole computers now on high speed.
Oh, great. Yeah, excellent. Oh, hey, I've got a list of issues here that I've forgotten to mention. I won't be here next week. I was planning on not being here the last week, but after some meetings, we've decided it makes more sense for me to go to Phoenix next week. And then I won't be here. Then I'll have one more visit to Phoenix, and after that, I'll be going to Alaska. So I won't be here next week. I will try and have the virtual meeting again like we did last time. We'll see if somebody like, well, I think Cheryl and Bill are gone, aren't they? Yeah. So we might have to get one of you, if you guys want to do an in-person meeting, we might have to get somebody here to be in charge of it. Otherwise, it'll be just a virtual meeting.
I don't know where I was last week either because I wasn't here, but I don't know what I was doing. I can't think of why I wasn't here.
Well, we had visions of you sandbagging in front of Loma Del Mar.
Not me.
The whole court didn't get out there to build up defenses around the gated community.
We got guards.
What's that?
We got
You've got guards, that's right. I've heard they're really effective in your theft problems.
Well, actually, I was telling these guys that out in the desert behind, way back, way back, Nakapuli, whatever that one's called, but straight back from Loma Del Mar, there was something going on with a bank of lights and music Thursday night, all night.
So they had like a rave out there.
I think so.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Thought you would know about it.
Yeah, I'm not that young anymore. I was happy to stay home.
Teenagers and your kids.
I do. And I let them go off with their mom. They're like, you're going to come join us, right? And I'm like, oh, we'll see. We'll see, as I'm lying there on the couch watching movies, eating my snacks. I'm like, I don't know. I'm pretty happy right here. I get tired too quick now. You and I used to do that stuff till 3, 4 in the morning. Well, another thing I wanted to ask, has anybody had any AI chat GPT experiences, even by accident? Bard is the Google version.
And it's very limited. We discussed that. They made it not all encompassing. And so Google is probably giving more information tonight.
Go ahead, Irving. I'm sorry.
The risk of getting
You felt like there was less risk of misinformation?
There was less information.
Because there was less information.
It's very abridged.
Yeah.
So Google actually gives you more links than they do.
This is an interesting perspective. It's kind of analogous to what Apple's done with security. You feel like your Apple device is more secure because they focused on it. They focused on doing these tasks without collecting information on you. And as a result, it's an inferior product.
They also have right now, during next week, I don't know, pushing it forward, but they want to limit the app because of the changes.
Yeah, whatever
They're thinking of curbing it.
number 4 or something.
Well, yeah, Chat GPT-4. This is actually one of the articles that I suggested you guys take a look at. And this is the theme right now. And I'm having a lot of trouble sorting out how genuine this opinion is, because it's shared by people like Elon Musk, but there are also some well-respected computer scientists out there saying we're moving too fast, and that releasing this is reckless, harmful, probably. Irving, you want to say something right off the bat? What do you got? I'm on that team.
What I'm concerned about is that at what point in power grids does the false information on a percentage basis far exceed the accurate information?
You mean
that's a real danger.
In using this
Yeah.
can result in a lot more misinformation.
You're right. There's no way in the world that the powers that be or the crooks that be will not try to use this for their own purposes.
There has been a couple of letters written, signed on by various people in the industry and in academia, chastising how quickly this stuff is coming forward. And I am really having trouble balancing how I feel about that, because I do think there's something disingenuous happening here. I do not believe anyone that signed those letters will stop their AI development. I don't believe that anything that Elon Musk is doing is going to stop. I don't think anything that Google's doing is going to stop.
They aren't saying that they're going to stop. They're just saying, the way I understood it, they're just saying that they are not going to release what they're doing.
Right. They're not going to release what they're doing.
But they
Probably
won't stop.
because it's crap. Probably because it can't compete with what's being released right now. Probably because it would be really good for their organization if everyone had to just take a step back until they got their products sorted out, right? Like the reason they want to stop, I'm not necessarily convinced it's for the good of mankind, but it's good for them to get a longer playing field so they can get caught up. Especially people like Google, who are the originators of this stuff, and they let it just kind of twist on the vine out there. And now they're like, oh my gosh, they're stumbling over themselves to try and show that they can take what they originated and do something with it like ChatGPT has done. I completely agree. The misinformation thing is a big concern. How powerful these models are is a big concern. But whether they should be fundamentally stopped, whether that's a good choice or not, I'm having trouble wrapping my head around.
In society where that's been relaxed, and now society is suffering from a lot of things that older people think is detrimental, like some of the porn, that's out there that wasn't available really early on with the censorship, and some of the music which seems to be focused to a certain group of people, which raises their temperature, and which we don't understand, or at least I don't understand how it's people music and other things like that. It's a different world, and censorship controlled that when I was a young man.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that it was controlled when you were a young man. It just wasn't readily available. I mean, it was still there.
Oh, of course. Of course.
The internet is an amplifier. That's
whispered is opposed to blared.
When I was in college, they used to refer to it as a fire hose of information. Say it's like trying to take a drink of water from a fire hose. And so all of these technologies has been about massaging and narrowing down the scope of the answer.
One example of what I'm talking about is if you saw an ankle or maybe 30s, if someone showed their ankle, this was definitely something to censor and could be approved by the movie industry. And right now, if you're watching a cartoon, the chances are it'll start out with the course. It's going so far afield, but you wonder why every movie has to start with a sex scene. Of course, I understand that there's so stupid and that's what sex sells. I mean, that's the obvious answer, but that's how far we've come. So again, with what we're facing now in technology, which is unquestionably could be a world changer, whether there's going to be a lot of good, but there's definitely going to be a lot of bad. And who's to decide, what really, in retrospect, it serves?
Okay, I think perhaps we should be educating people to decide for themselves. And first of all, I don't think every movie starts with a sex scene or a crime scene.
Well, all the ones that Irving's watching.
Oh, yeah, I don't want
That's a Netflix category. You just scroll down to the starting with sex scenes category.
What I really need to say is that unnecessary parts of movies that don't serve any real storyline, but they stick it in. And before the session ends, I want to recommend a very good movie.
It starts with sex scenes.
No.
I don't think generalities help at all. If we can get down to specifics and we can get agreement among the populace specific, okay, it's like voting for a presidential nominee.
Well,
Once the agreement is made, then fine.
Yeah, well, even the generalities, okay, I don't think anybody in this room is in favor of any kind of censorship. I think we would all fall on the side of information wants to be free, regardless of what the information is. There's just this natural, we want truth to be out there. And so sometimes the truth is ugly, sometimes the information is unpleasant, but I'd rather have unpleasant information out there than to have a system that's suppressing information.
Or that's only giving you the happy things, or What was that movie where they all took their happy pills and,
Brave New World.
no.
Yeah, Soma. We're all high on Soma.
Freedom, I agree that most of us probably believe in freedom. But you gotta, freedom doesn't exist without justice. And for argument's sake, freedom allows me to kill you, and I'm free to do that. But that doesn't work really in the true sense of freedom without quiet justice, one of the great ideas. So
What do you
this
do with the
transcends
librarian
our
who wants to
conversation.
be in the Dr. Seuss books because there's so many new characters? And there is one out there.
Hey, Chester. I was wondering, are you having problems hearing us? Are you still there? But he just reconnected. He disconnected and
I'm back on. Sorry about that.
No worries. I was just worried maybe you were having trouble hearing us.
I am having trouble not hearing you, but I'm having trouble hearing Irvin and everybody else.
Sorry about that, Chester. I'll try and reiterate stuff that seems like it needs to be said again.
Okay, next week, were you going to be virtual?
I'm going to do the virtual meeting, but I'll be doing it from Phoenix in the workplace. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to be very active in it.
Okay, how about when do you leave?
I'll leave the end of May. Well, like the second week in May is when I'll be leaving. I'll probably leave here like the 14th of May.
Got you.
Yeah.
Sorry
think
to
that's-
interfere.
Say again?
I'm sorry to interfere.
No, not at all. Not at all. I was worried that it wasn't working for you. I'm glad you're back. And what we were really talking about was ChatGPT and this article that I posted or I shared with you guys, where we have letters coming out from leaders in the industry saying that this stuff should be slowed down. I don't actually have an opinion. I understand why you'd feel that way. The same way you might find yourself on the side of censorship because you don't appreciate what's being said. The same way, if I was in the industry trying to make my product and you're making these products look bad by their inaccuracy and a potentially harmful way, then maybe I want to work against you being able to do it openly because I want to put something out that reflects the opposite, that people come away feeling like it's useful. I want to go back to my analogy of Apple with their security. They are considered a very secure platform. At the same time, I'm not kidding when I say that many of us can't use their products. You have Apple Maps, you have Apple Translations, you have these applications that I've grown dependent on generically, and I go to the Apple platform and I try and use their versions, and they don't work as well. They just don't. The mapping doesn't work as well as Google Maps. Google Maps actually works better on my iPhone than Apple Maps works on my iPhone. And the reason it's not good is because they're protecting your information. That's the reason it's not good. If your information was just sucked in and used for all your calculations, you'd have a great mapping experience.
Is that something they're telling you?
No, that's what we know. We know from Apple that what they've done is they've worked very hard to lock down on you leaking information to third parties. And one of the side effects of dedicating yourself to being private is that they don't have any of that information to work on. So traffic data has to come from a different place. Update data has to come from a different place. It can't come, I mean, in the mapping specifically, it's a great example is you can see real-time traffic updates in Google Maps very easily. I had an experience one time, it's one of my favorite experiences. I'm driving my kids to school. I got Google Maps on just to have an ETA, just because I'm who I am. I know exactly where I'm going, but I'm watching the maps. It says 20 minutes. All of a sudden, it flips from the Dolphinarium Road to the main road. So you got to take the main road. You got to go all the way out to the highway and follow that to the kids' school. I'm like, No, I don't. I have no interest in doing that. I never take that route, but it's going to cost me time. It's telling me it's going to cost me easily 5, 10 more minutes. It's really slow down the Dolphinarium Road. I'm looking down the road. There's nobody. I don't know what they're talking about. So I go down the road and I'm going as fast as I normally go. And it says, you're coming up. It's going to be really slow. There's a traffic jam. And Google presents this as like a big red line up in front of you, right? You're fine, but up around the corner, there's a big red line. And I keep driving and driving. And I'm not worried about it at all. And I finally get to where I'm coming around the corner to the big red line. And I find a transport vehicle of all of these workers. And you can imagine every one of them has some cheap Android phone in their pocket. And so what they're looking at is a dozen Android phones moving at 30 miles an hour right in front of me. And I went around them, and all of a sudden the line was blue. Right? But to give you an idea of how much people's information is leaking out of them, that's it right there. You choose to use a Google device, you're choosing to give up that information because Google is using it to process all these other services. Apple is not allowing you to give up that information. I'm not saying that in a bad way. It sounded like a bad way. I mean, they're preventing that kind of information to be leaked out because they're selling to you their security and privacy. That's part of their mantra. But what happens is they've got an inferior product because they don't have any of that information. They have to buy that information from other sources. It's not as up to date. Like my Apple Map wouldn't give me those kinds of updates as quickly or as accurately.
You know, I've heard that Waze is much better than all of them.
Yeah, well, Waze is just a play on Google. Google bought Waves, and it's just Waze. Yeah, it's using the exact same data set. It's using its original data set plus Google's data sets. So yeah, there's nothing.
So it's the same thing.
It's the same kind of thing. It's not the same thing. It is a different app. It was designed by a different company that was later bought by Google, and Google took the pieces out of it to make their mapping better. But there's so many Waze customers that they integrated their own mapping into Waze, and so both products are better because of them owning Waze. But it's the same thing. There's nothing private about any of that stuff. Your location is regularly known. Another example, we talked about the Apple tags last week. And one of the things that I never really got into was how they, I mean, I got into a little bit, how they try and make that private. So if you, and to compare and contrast, if you went and looked at a map to find out where your phone is, you lost your Google phone, you could watch the journey that your phone went on throughout time because it tracks all that.
The assumption is the phone is on. What if the phone is turned off?
Well, then you would find the last reported place of the phone. Yeah. But you can watch that phone travel. If you had access to the Google account associated with that phone, you could watch every stop that phone made along the way. You could have it mapped out. You can't do that with Apple stuff. With Apple stuff, you can see the last place that phone reported its place. But there is no mapping. There is no watching the journey. You can't stalk that phone because they're dedicated to privacy. And so they've intentionally built their technology to not be able to be used like that. So when we were talking about the DEA sticking Apple tags in questionable packages, they're not able to watch every step that package is on. They can only see the most recent destination, or the most recent destination where that package has ended up. They can't see how it got there, if you follow what I mean, because of Apple's dedicated. Another thing they did with the Apple tags is, and unfortunately, Android users don't get to know this, but if we talked last week, like somebody slips it into your purse, if you are an iPhone user or an iPad user, it'll tell you, it'll start chirping at you going, hey, there's a tag following you around, right? Because the assumption is it's not your tag. Otherwise, your device would know about it. If it's your tag, it would know that's your purse sitting on the couch over there. But if it's not your tag, did you know there's a tag in your purse? That's what Apple is dedicated to, is trying to prevent the abuse of your information. It's all marketing. I mean, it's another area. Google is marketing the success of these products. Apple is marketing the security of these products. It's just two different ways to market stuff.
So I have a question. So several weeks ago, you recommended replacing my older desktop or MacBook. And are you still recommending the 16 or 32?
Well, if you're getting a 32M chip, you're getting into the Pros and the Maxes, right?
That's what I have now as a Pro, and I didn't know whether.
Well, you have a MacBook Pro.
I do.
But what I'm referring to is the brain, the chip that's in it.
And you said 1 terabyte.
Definitely 1 terabyte.
Definitely.
Yeah, because the way these devices are built.
What's the difference between the 16? I know the difference is 16, but 16 and 32.
The real difference is you can't change it later.
Okay.
So what you want to do is look at your usage habits. And I look at Judy, and I think you don't need more than 16.
Probably not, but I'd rather have more than not enough.
Well, so we've talked about this in the past. The RAM, you can't upgrade anymore. Everything that is a Macintosh is on one board. And if you have to replace that board to fix or upgrade, you might as well be buying a new computer, because that board is worth 2/3 the price of the computer. So you're making this expensive purchase decision right now, and you're hopefully making it so that you're not having to make it again for another 10 years, maybe, at least 7. You don't want to have to make it again for 7 years. I will hold on to a Macintosh for 10 years if I can. I hate the idea that something on that board could go bad and I'm in the market for another computer. It fills me with fear every day I use my Mac, is that the memory is going to go bad. Now I have to get a new computer.
Mine has this, it's the fan, but now I can hear the fan.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of.
What's irritating about it is you're using the older generation chips that need that cooling.
Right.
And the newer generations don't necessarily need that cooling.
And this is only recent. It gets stuck doing something. Like if it's updating or something, then the fan will come on. And I'm thinking, this is not a good thing.
Well, it's not untypical. Because when you need sustained processing, it will heat up and it'll need cooling. But I would suspect that if it's out of the norm for you, then what's happened is the fan has gotten clogged up with dust, and so it has to work harder to cool things off. The other thing that happens is that there's a thermal paste layer between the chip and the cooler that has the fan on it, and that thermal paste will dry out. And so the transfer of heat to the cooling system will be inferior. And so the cooling system will have to work harder. Depending on your Mac, you'd have to decide whether that kind of maintenance is something you want to do, or if you're just in the market for a new Mac. If you're out of date with the operating system, then that might be a reason to be considering updating the Mac. Well, the operating system now is up to 13, Mac OS 13. So I would say if you're in a Macintosh, no, you're thinking of your iPad.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm talking about your MacBook.
I just updated my Mac.
Yeah, your MacBook, the latest Macintosh desktop operating system is 13. I think it's 13.2 or 13.2.1, something like that. If you were back on 10, which is very common for older generation Macs, they never crossed the gap over to 11, never got into 12. Apple just wrote them off. If you're still on 10, that might be a very reasonable computer, still doing the job you bought it for, still doing the jobs you want it to do, and the fan starts making noise. That's where you start having to do some soul searching, because the fan problem can probably be resolved in my world for $100, $150. Whereas if you're on 10 and you're not compatible with 13, you're living in an antiquated world to begin with. Maybe it's better to just take that $150 and put it towards the upgrade, because in the end, you're going to need to upgrade. Your security's fallen behind. You're more liable for attack. There's other parts that are going to start going bad on that computer. The screen could have a problem. If that's not the case, then money might be better spent giving it to me to open it up and do a service on the cooling system. And you just have to make that decision for yourself.
I like the 1 terabyte part of it more than I like the rest of it.
I don't like how it's not modular.
Yeah.
I don't like the purchase price for a computer that's not modular. It is pushing us into this area where the tech is not what we're focused on. The services are what we're focused on. And so if they were bringing down the prices, and I think Chromebooks are a really good example of this, that if they're bringing down the prices, then you're not worried about servicing the computer. You pass it off wherever you pass it off and you go get another one. And the Chromebooks, I say, are a good example of that, because if you're a Google user, everything you have is in Google. You pay for Google Cloud space. All your documents are in Google Cloud space. I mean, if you've become that person, which is a very easy thing to do, then a Chromebook you can pick up between $100 to $500. You can spend $2,000. I don't recommend it, but you can easily get a brand new $250 touchscreen Chromebook that would live in that world. And that's a really good buy. And many people that decide to go that direction might be replacing a computer that was a Windows computer they spent $500, $700 on. And all they've ever done is open up a Chrome browser and surf their email and look up movie prices and the locations. And a Chromebook is perfect for that. And they're really easy to use. The Windows computers are legacy computers. The Macintosh computers are legacy computers. And what that means is you've been doing a thing. We've moved forward with technology, but you still need to be able to do that thing. And that thing, you're getting farther and farther away from that thing as the technology progresses. That's why if you've adopted to Google technology and you've never done a thing way back here in the timeline, then you're not expecting to be able to do it on a Chromebook. And so the Chromebook is a good choice. But there's plenty of people out there that have relied on some version of CAD forever, or some version of Photoshop forever, or even if maybe you have a machine that makes quilts or creates patterns, and that software will only run in a Windows computer, then you're stuck trying to figure out how to make a Windows computer work. And I actually, as far as a Chromebook, that's where you end up looking at $1,000 Chromebook, because you can run Windows in a window on a Chromebook, because that software exists. And if you need to keep that thing running, maybe you do bite the bullet and buy $1,000 Chromebook, just so this one thing that you used to do in Windows can still be done by your equipment, and you can toss the old computer. Hello, Bill, welcome.
Nope.
I hope that's not a sign we lost him.
It kind of looks bad. There he is.
Bill, you're speaking, but we hear nothing. I can see you speaking, but we hear nothing.
I don't see it.
Yeah, the little indicator was.
Oh, I thought you were looking into it.
There's Cheryl. Hello, you guys are in the car? Yeah, they weren't muted, but there was no sound coming through. Now they look frozen. Now they're not frozen. Yeah, I can hear you now. Hello. Yeah, you've got. You're really breaking up. You might actually turn off the video so we can hear your audio. You might be hurting for bandwidth.
Okay. So
So
We're on the
repeat-
road. We just left San Carlos.
You've left this morning.
Send them a message.
Yes, we just left the house after the inspection and all that stuff, and we're on the road headed north.
All right. Well, you'll let us know you get there safely.
Okay, well, we'll check in next week.
Yeah, hey, Cheryl, I just mentioned to everybody, I'm not going to be able to do an in-person meeting next week. So it's just going to be a virtual meeting next week. It looks like
Okay.
we're having network problems here. And that problem is gone again. And it's back. I don't know what's going on. But we're going to keep moving forward. I don't even know where we were. We were talking about Apple and security. We were talking about ChatGPT. I am still perplexed about whether these are self-serving statements or if these are genuine concerns. I kind of fall in, there's a mix of both. I think you can be self-serving and have fear at the same time. I think it's in some of these companies' best interests that it does hold back while they get their product. You know what? It's like the hoverboards. That would be a product right now. People would be using those hoverboards wheeled devices. They were the hottest thing until they started catching fire. Right? The hottest thing, that is funny. I didn't mean to say that. But they were there. They were the Christmas gift of, what was it, 2017, something like that. And now you don't see them anywhere. And I'm sure you can build those devices without them catching on fire. Just everybody allowed them to be released at the holiday season without any kind of controls. And so some of them were built to really good, solid specs that would pass UL certification, and others were just knockoffs from China being slapped together and catching houses on fire. And I think this is one of those situations where I bet those hoverboard manufacturers that were doing a good job were like, let's get this trash out of the marketplace because it's making our product look bad. And I think we are at that point where we've got some really good developers out there working in AI, and they may need a year, 2 years, 4 years, but what they're going to bring is safe, consistent, reliable. And we may not get to see that because there's so many fires being started by ChatGPT that we're going to have some blanket legislation go across, stopping all of this. I think you can be self-serving and fearful at the same time.
You kind of have to take into consideration that Elon Musk is also promoting this, so that means something.
Well, and what does it mean at this point in his career?
I don't know, but it does mean something.
Well, and from our perspective, am I more in favor of waiting or less that he's got an opinion on this? In all honesty, his opinion on something sways me, but I always have to decide whether am I on his side or am I against his side? I like the idea of going to Mars at some point. I don't happen to care for him as a person, as I've learned amply from Twitter. Apparently, he's somebody I wouldn't enjoy spending time with. No, it's funny that he would own it and it's not kind to him.
I have a question from the past.
Sure.
I know that many years ago, Yahoo really screwed up on privacy issues.
Yep.
But some of us are stuck with it because that's how we're known.
Yes.
And the latest update, which I regret doing, I cannot on the screen bring up my list of send to people.
Okay.
Thank you.
Your contacts.
My contact list.
You can't bring up a
I
contact
cannot
list.
bring it up. And also, all of my incoming email seems to be going to either spam or trash. How do I go into Yahoo and change that if I can't remember the damn password?
If you're, yeah, wow, that's layers of problems you've got
Yes.
going on
Yeah.
with Yahoo. Okay, working backwards. Oh, wow, we are losing internet connections here. I have no idea why. And it's random. It's like anyway, I'll look at that later. Well, okay, going backwards, you have to figure out what your password is. To recover a password, hopefully you've got a phone number associated with it or another email account, but that's your first step is you have to figure out what that password is. Now, hopefully Yahoo's doing the same kind of things that Microsoft is doing and Google is doing. If you've got a device that was signed into Yahoo at one point, it may sign back in without a password.
Would changing your phone chip provider?
Yeah, it could cause you a problem.
Okay, that's solving a lot of it, right?
You might be able to put that chip back in your original phone and get access to Yahoo, at least at a temporary level, because what's happening is they're identifying the hardware you're using and they're identifying the software you're using. So if I sign in, and I'm going to say, I haven't used Yahoo in a long time, so I'm going to say this in terms of Google or Microsoft. I go to Microsoft on Chrome on this computer, and it just signs me in because I've been there before. I go to it on this computer. I've never been there before, but I'm using Chrome. I'm signed into Chrome.
Right.
It still asks me to verify that this is a computer that I should sign in from Chrome. This computer that I've been signed in on Chrome before is fine. I go to Microsoft Edge and I sign in. I have to verify because I've never been in Google from Edge on this computer. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
The software and the hardware married together is what they're using to verify. And so if you're not using both those two things at the same time, then it's an instance to be verified. So you might be able to get access simply by going back to old equipment, an old situation that used to connect without a problem. If you can get in that respect, you might be able to get as far as updating your secondary authentication information. You might be able to set another phone number. You might be able to set another email address. You might not. There's security that won't allow you to do that. The problem is this stuff changes all the time, but you got to get, then as far as your contact list, there should be contacts there.
I tried it. And I'm just told, I see it there for an hour.
Yeah.
And I was either kick it or leave. So I left.
Okay.
Um,
But were you looking at Yahoo or were you stuck at the password prompt?
password.
Yeah. So I suspect that once you get in, you'll be able to get at your contacts without any problem. And as far as the original thing you were saying, Yahoo it had more than a problem where they got hacked. If they had just gotten hacked, that would be forgivable.
I have been.
Yeah. They were hacked. They knew how they had been hacked. They knew how many people it affected, and they knew they were trying to sell the company. And so they intentionally kept that information from people for months. And the only reason that we found out about it was because someone else discovered it. Yahoo never openly disclosed that your information was in the wild. Someone else had to figure it out. And then they admitted that they had kept.
4 years ago.
Yeah, maybe even longer. Because what they proved is they were a poor steward of information. They were a poor service. You obviously weren't the customer. I mean, it's unfortunate when it becomes so blatantly clear that you were not Their goal was not to help you. They were just using you. And that's the reason, and I still do, I recommend staying away from using those products, because in the end, they're not going to protect you. They're going to protect themselves. Someone else has done this recently too. Oh, LastPass. It's the reason we're not using LastPass. It's not because they got hacked. Everyone at some point gets hacked. It's the way they dealt with being hacked. The way they immediately went to save face and cover and media exposure, instead of just sending out to their people, we've been hacked. I mean, it goes deeper with LastPass as well, because they are a security company. So they had, in the disclosure of all this that they never wanted anyone to find out, we discovered that they had done a lousy job of protecting our information. So not only did they do a lousy job of protecting our information, which is their only job, Yahoo's got dozens of jobs, but LastPass job is to protect our information. They did a lousy job of that. And then they kept it secret because they were afraid of how it was going to affect their stock prices, because they were sold to a finance company and they were no longer a security company. Yes.
Talking about information and security, doesn't it boggle the mind that the military could not control the plans in Ukraine that just got leaked on the internet?
They couldn't, say this again, Irving, in the military in Ukraine?
The plans for the plans for the counterattack along with Ukraine has been leaked on the internet.
Oh yeah. I read a headlining, but I didn't really follow what that was all about. How it got leaked. And these are the Ukrainian plans, not the Russian plans. It's the
American Ukraine operation.
Okay, like the documentation that shows how they're right.
And the original authorization is most likely came from America.
So
Not from Russia.
So the assumption would be some Russian supporter in the United States leaked this. Gotcha. Yeah, I haven't paid too much attention to it, but yeah. Huh? I often think of information the way I often think of information as being like light, and you can't stop it. It's like being in a dark room and somebody lights a match. All of a sudden you can see everything. And I think of information in that form. The repression of information is absolutely that. It's pushing it down, it's sticking it in a box, it's trying to keep it from escaping, but it wants to escape in its own nature, it wants to escape. And all you need is just the littlest hole, and it'll leak out. And if people are paying attention to it, they're sharing it with everyone that it's relevant. For example, that it's too bad it's in this respect. And it's another reason that I feel like we need regulation, because anything technical that can be done will be done. Technology will be used for anything it can possibly be used for. And so it becomes a matter of accountability than anything else. Well, that's a good story. I wish I had brought that with me. I don't have any articles with me about how that got leaked or how it ended up on the internet. I'm just not surprised it would be on the internet. I have a funny story for you guys. If you looked at the document that I sent around last night, did you see that somebody tunneled through a coffee shop to get to an iPhone store?
$5 million or $5 million.
Whoa.
I think the most impressive thing there is $500,000 worth of iPhones is just like 500 phones. That's it. Yeah, it is.
The first thing that came to my mind is, Apple just make them inoperable?
Yes, they can.
So what can they do with these phones?
It's an interesting question. I don't know what they can do with it, because Apple, you're absolutely right. From what we understand, Apple should have every one of those identification numbers, and every one of those identification numbers can be locked out from being used. And so it doesn't matter if you have a legitimate Apple account. In fact, what people have to be concerned with, and I actually had a customer that did this with an Android phone recently, they have to be concerned that the networks have blocked these phones and they're buying them online, like from an eBay or a, right? And so the brand new in box, never been used, unlocked phone for sale. And the buyers are now going to have to be like, you better show the ID number that you're not supposed to be showing, but how else are you going to find out whether it's in that batch that was stolen? Yeah.
They will be trying to push things.
Sure.
So the third parties basically you have to stay away from, especially if it's cheaper than it's supposed to be.
You know, and this isn't the iPhone story, but the Amazon, you just sparked on something that's happening to me recently with Amazon. For my kids' quinceanera, which was in December, we bought a gross of these artificial flowers to decorate the place with. They're like lilacs or something. They're all these.
Girls.
I'm a father of daughters. And so we received, months before the quinceanera, we received boxes of these artificial flowers, these purple flowers. That's fine. Here it is now in April. And I have twice in the last month gotten updates from Amazon giving me money back because the import that they had to pay to get them into Mexico had changed and they actually owed me money. And so here we are, I mean, like almost 6 months later, and this is the second time they're giving me back. I mean, we're only talking about pesos. I mean, one of the orders ended up being something like 500 pesos they're giving back to me. But they're still making sure, their systems are automatically making sure I got the fair deal out of that.
I noticed that they're going to garnish me my security if I don't respond. When I responded to them, I turned it over to another agency. They no longer were the agency they directed me to. And I was able to settle it for $28 that I never got billed for from the Veterans Administration.
Oh, wow.
At the same time, I received a check from the U.S. government for $56, no explanation. Lunch. This week's
Came out bad.
Be careful you're not brought up on charges for frauding the government.
I'm sure no human being could view this. It's all
right. Yeah, the frustration is when we've reached a point where all this is happening automatically and your experience, and all of a sudden you get, hey, we're looking for $56. It's been sent off to a credit. What are they called?
When I responded, they didn't give me an amount. I didn't know.
The ones that go to get the money back, what are they called? Credit. Collectors, thank you. The collectors. That was the word I was looking for. Collectors.
Agency.
Yeah. That's where it becomes a problem, is when they're asking for their $56 back and you can't talk to them because it's just a computer asking for it back. Right.
I can go ahead and garnish fee my $28, whatever it was. It wasn't worth the trouble that I went through to find out who I owned and how to pay. Incidentally, it was a $12 charge to use my check account, but a $60-some-odd charge to use my credit card.
Jesus.
For my $28. I paid the 12, needless to say.
Oh yeah, we've advanced so far in this work.
I didn't do that, so it's too late for her.
Well, why don't we do that, because we're running out of time. So let's just move on. Anything that I've put in this document we haven't talked about may stay for next week's virtual meeting, because I won't be here. Go ahead.
The name of the movie is, it's a feel-good movie, funny, and no sex. The name of it is Hunger.
Is that what she says?
Hunger.
Hunger.
And it's a really good company, very funny, good movie.
You're not going to give us any synopsis.
Well, I'm going to just say that I've watched at least a dozen food movies, and outside of one maybe, they're all great movies. I love somehow the food-based movies. They're just very, very enjoyable. My favorite, of course, is Last Holiday.
Last Holiday.
It's a really good feel movie. Anybody that hasn't seen that has to rush home.
Well, speaking of food movies, have you seen that one Chef by Jon Favreau? Oh, excellent movie. He buys a food truck. He's like this well-renowned. Have you guys seen that? He's this well-renowned chef that goes through like this midlife crisis kind of
Chef is a great
issue.
movie. 100 Yards, is that the name of the other one?
Oh, I don't think I've seen
100
that.
Feet or 100 Yards. Another great, and Who's Killing the Great Chefs of Europe or something, another great old. I mean, it's just, and then there's a one I love, I think it's called Noodles.
Noodles.
Noodles. An Asian movie, and
I'm writing all these down. I'm going to go home and just have a smorgasbord of food movie. Hey, I've got a good feel-good movie that you might appreciate. It's called Pinball. Yeah, and it's a dramatization of the history of pinball, and very specifically the unbanning of it in New York City. It's a yeah, I believe it was on Netflix. Maybe it was on Prime. It's called Pinball: The Man Who Saved the Game, and it's the story about an author.
Wasn't it considered gambling?
That's the reason it was. That's what it is that it was considered gambling. Even so, what you learned from this film that I didn't know is Chicago is like the father of pinball, and it was banned there. It was banned in all these major cities because it was associated with gambling, games of chance. Well, and so was this reporter, this writer. And he started writing columns for New York talking about pinball. Yeah, they talk about that. Yeah, they talk about the manufacturing of the tilt. Yeah. Well, and they would nail down the machines so people wouldn't move them. They made a innovation where they would put a metal ball inside the machine with two metal rods. The tilt. Well, yeah. Anyway, definitely, it's a fun movie. It's one of those movies where it's like they're telling a story of the past, and they keep flashing back to the past, and so they would dramatize it, and all of a sudden you'd flash forward and go, no, that's not how it happened. Come on. So it was a fun movie. It's a good feel good movie. All about pinball, the history of pinball, stuff I'd never known before. And Ray, you had suggested Letters Live on YouTube.
Yep, and they're 3 to 7 minutes long, so it's great if you're getting dressed and you want to spend 3 minutes watching.
Letters Live.
Yeah.
You search for it on YouTube.
Actual letters, handwritten, that have gone through the mailing system from almost everybody to somebody about some subject. So it varies considerably.
So they're basically reading people's letters.
Yes.
And they're reading it because it's interesting, because
Yes.
they're the subject matter of it, but it's not.
Usually the person reading it is someone well known.
Oh, okay.
It could be a politician, could be an actor.
Is it their letter, or are they just reading the letter?
No, they're reading someone else's
Okay.
correspondence.
So it could be historic, it could be technologically based. I mean, the stories are as random as letters are.
Right.
That's cool.
It is cool.
I have a TV show to recommend too that we've been having a lot of fun. It's on Netflix, and I had no idea that it's 3 seasons. It's actively producing more. It's a show called You. Have you seen this? I'm sure you've seen it pop up on your Netflix. You, YOU, You. And I don't know. Did you guys ever get into Dexter? The serial killer that was a police officer, and this is like a light version of Dexter. This is a guy. He actually owns a bookshop, and he's very intelligent, well spoken, but he's obsessive. He's an obsessive, compulsive person, and you're following him down this mental path where all his obsessions are the only woman he'll ever love. Each season, it's a different woman, and he's stalking. He's getting involved. He's pushing people out of their way. And there is some real violence that's happening, but it's all dark comedy. It's like you go on this journey with him. You're inside his head, and he has got some of the funniest one-liners. The things he relates to are so out of proportion for the situation because he's a sociopath. So what he's finding funny, you're just like caught completely off guard. He'll interrelate with situations, and his relationship with that situation be like, well, that's when I had to tie her up, or that's when they started bleeding all over the couch. This is whatever it might be. It is a very funny show. And it's intended to be funny, but you sit there going, am I really supposed to find this funny? That's the kind of show it is. Well, we've kind of reached the end of our hour, and I hope we've gotten to anything you guys wanted to get to. But if not, we can do it next week. Is there a chance we might see you folks? I know Irving's joined us online for virtual meetings in the past. Is there a chance you folks might try and join us online for a virtual meeting? What you would need if you wanted to, you would need a Google account to be in the meeting. And so I send out that email that has of the document. It has our codes that we use. And they're links, so you can click on it right from the email, which is what we tell people all the time not to do. But my email, you can click on a link from. And that code will take you to the meet, and your Google account is what would allow you to get into it. And if it didn't allow you in automatically, then you'd be in a queue waiting for me to press a button to let you in. Your password to Google. So that would be an issue. That would have to be sorted out. You'd have to be using Google. Gmail is the most obvious way to use Google. If you have a Gmail account, you have access to all those Google services.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Irving. Have a good week.
I have had no problem with my emails, dashing periods through my keyboard like this.
Oh, good.
Excuse me. You're massaging, you're making me feel like it.
Do you think that it was a key getting stuck or something like that? Yeah, that's a pretty common problem to have. But it hasn't come back. All right. Excellent. Yeah, especially if it's gotten a bit old and it's lived in different environments, different community, different climates, like different heat, different humidity, then it's really common. Dust, yeah.
Thank you.
Great, you're welcome. Thanks for coming. Now I get to put all this stuff back. That's all part of doing this thing. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Scott Stimson from International Computer Solutions. If you like what we do, you can see more of it by going to sccclub.org. And if you're out there on the internet looking for solutions, I'm the guy to talk to. Check me out. You can send me an email, scott@internationalcs.net. Until next Tuesday, it will be a virtual meeting. Everyone, tech on. You're welcome, Ray. See you guys. We're going to shut down this broadcast. End the broadcast.